Welcome back to the Double Leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Job Picks. The other half of the show, the Parlay. Joining me in to break down an Apex card, UFC Vegas 98. We're coming off a hot ending to UFC 307. An insane fight to end the night. We had some very questionable decisions on the card. Overall, I was up just 0.71 units. I know you and I were on the wrong end of some of those decisions. I think we were all on three of them. I think we were both on Hubbard, Jose Aldo, and Raquel Pennington. 3 splits that didn't go our way. Still managed to scrape by with a little bit of profit, but it could have been a big night. Even if we just get one of those, we're up a couple units. You know, you got to factor in the swings in betting. Swing one way is you got to multiply it, because if you lose 2 units on a Jose Aldo, but if you win it, then you're positive 4 more units. So if we just get one of those, we have a real great night. But overall, I felt good with my reads. Also got screwed on the Kevin Holland injury. That sucked. And then if you follow the DFS plays, boys, we got to talk. I think they're out to get us with the DFS plays, because we had 2 winners that got stat corrected to being losers. And it seems like within the past 3 weeks, none of these stat corrections are going our way. They're going the opposite way. And they're very fishy. So maybe we just got to be a little bit sharper. Maybe we got to file a lawsuit. I don't know what it is. But overall, UFC 307 was very frustrating, because I felt like it could have been a massive night. But at the end of the day, still a little bit profitable. Can't complain. How'd it go for you?
Yeah, it was a fight card. I thought I made the perfect reads. Even in some of the fights, I thought the reads were spot on. And then, getting screwed with split decisions, I would have swept all of my money line and totals plays if Austin Hubbard, Jose Aldo, and Raquel Pennington get their hand raised. All those split decisions, the Austin Hubbard fight, I get. That was a super close fight. I thought he was more aggressive. I thought he could have stole it based on that. Didn't get it. It was a smaller bet on my end, so I'm fine with it. But Aldo and Pennington, man. So I had Tisha Pennington, which I felt I might have got lucky that one for one of my biggest plays of the night. And then I missed, like I said, Hubbard, Aldo, Pennington. And then I had Alex Pereira and Khalil to go over 1.5 rounds. That hit. So, man, I'm looking at a huge night if I just don't get screwed. If I just get 2 of those split decisions my way, we're doing really, really well. Ended up being down just under 5 units for that reason. So super frustrating. Taking underdogs like Jose, underdogs like Austin Hubbard, and they go to a split decision where you think they're going to get their hand raised. I felt like the reads were there, and we gave ourselves a chance, but just couldn't get any help.
Sometimes it just comes down to the judges. And
Yeah.
that's when you just want to rip up your ticket, because you already know it's probably not going your way.
Yeah.
But hopefully we get some better luck going into the Vegas card here. We got 13 fights to break down. We'll give you a pick. If you want the bets, jump in the Homo Fight Picks Premium membership link down in the description below. That's where we're going to get all of our bets for the Contender Series, for the UFC, and we got a big PFL card coming up in about a week and a half here on October 19th, I think it is.
Yep.
There'll be a lot of bets on that one, because there's a lot of good fights. So I'm looking forward to that. But this weekend, UFC Vegas, we got Tatsuro Taira and Brandon Royval. Other than that, prelims are looking rough. Main card's looking rough. I mean, we're looking at a main card with a Corey Mckenna and Julia Polastri. It's looking rough. But at the end of the day, we can still look at these fights and we can find some value. We'll break them down for you. Let's start it off with the first fight of the night. I don't know if this is exactly the first fight of the night, but it is what our thumbnail or our slides guy thinks is the first fight of the night. Chris Barnett taking on Junior Tafa. Beast Boy is back, and he looks slimmer than ever. Plus 255 on Chris Barnett, minus 350 on Junior Tafa. If you're in the Twitter world, the X world, you probably saw the line on Chris Barnett where he was like minus 500. Not sure how long that lasted, but I'm assuming it lasted probably 0.05 seconds, because there's no reason that he should be a favorite over Junior Tafa. I think the line is a lot more accurate now. Chris Barnett, much older, 10 years to be exact, much shorter, much fatter, but he does have more experience. Got a lot of experience in MMA. That's something Junior Tafa can't say. What do you think about the matchup?
Yeah, I think with Tafa being minus 350, I think it shows that the books and the odds makers respect his striking, because this is going to be a fight that for as long as it lasts, or if it's all 15 minutes, it's going to be on the feet. Chris Barnett, you and I were talking, I don't think he's ever gone for a takedown in the UFC. He doesn't have that wrestler build whatsoever. This guy has surprising athleticism and some power, with his kicks. He has the famous wheel kick that he knocked out. Who was it? Ike Villanueva?
No, it was John Vellante.
Yeah, Vellante. And he lands stuff like that every now and then. But going up against Tafa is a good kickboxer with fast hands for heavyweight, good kicks as well. He's just had the unfortunate luck of fighting all wrestlers and grapplers so far. He gets Muhammad Usman, who didn't want any part of the striking, takes him down and lays on him. He's had, who did he fight? Rogerio de Lima, where he just got his leg kicked off. And I think his striking is good. I don't think Chris Barnett is going to have the size, the length, or even really the speed to keep up with him. I think Tafa just stays at range here, does what he does. I think he's got good power in his hands too. He's able to hurt opponents. We saw against Usman, while the fight was on the feet for maybe 30 seconds of that whole fight, he was cracking and hurting Usman. Usman's a bigger guy, longer. I just think he's going to be a little bit too much on the feet for Chris Barnett. Love Chris Barnett. Love watching him fight. I just don't really I don't know, man. He gets some of these wins and they're against lower level of competition. I wouldn't necessarily claim that Junior Tafa is a high level of competition, but I think his striking is good enough to where he should walk away with the win here.
Yeah, it was so the last time we saw Chris Barnett was September 10th, 2022. So he's been off for 2 years. He got knocked down in the first round by Jay Collier. And Jay Collier nearly finished him. And then Jay Collier gassed out. Chris Barnett took over and he cashed.
His eye was all messed up.
Yeah, he cashed as like a plus 280 underdog. So he's kind of in a similar situation here. Where he's a big underdog. Probably should lose this fight. And I think he probably will, because I don't really see Junior Tafa being a gas bag like Jay Collier in that fight. And I think if he puts down Chris Barnett, I think he's got a lot more power than Jay Collier. So Junior Tafa is my pick. Chris Barnett is literally just a freak show type of fighter. He's not really going to bring a whole lot of technicalities. Just a short, fat dude in there trying to swing bombs and maybe land a wheel kick. Can you really count on a wheel kick KO from Chris Barnett? Probably not. So Junior Tafa is the pick. Moving along, we got Corey Mckenna and Julia Polastri. Corey Mckenna coming in at plus 120 against Polastri, who is 0-1 in the UFC, making her sophomore outing here. Mckenna coming off the submission loss to Jacqueline Amaran. Polastri lost her debut to Josephine Knudsen. So both ladies coming off a loss, need a win. Polastri, the favorite without the UFC win under her belt. What do you think of it?
Yeah, Corey Mckenna is a girl that I think, historically, that's who you want to bet on as the underdog. After her last performance, the fight IQ was non-existent. She goes out there in a fight where she just needs to keep it on the feet against Jacqueline Amarim. And, she's the one kind of instigating it to the ground, gets submitted with the armbar in the first. Hate to see that. Her wins in the UFC aren't the highest level. Cheyenne Vlismus and Miranda Granger, and then the loss to Elise Reed, which was a close fight, split decision. I think she's well-rounded enough to where she's going to compete in this fight. But I just think Julia Polastri, being talented, I think, against Josephine Knudsen, she made that fight a little bit closer than people thought. I think Knudsen's a very good fighter. Polastri showed she's got heart towards the end, when she starts to come on. And she does that in fights too. As fights goes on, she gets a little bit stronger. I think her striking is going to be more powerful than Mckenna. If the fight goes to the ground, I don't think she's a fish out of water. She's got submissions on her record. She's got multiple submissions on her record. She's the longer fighter with the reach. I'm not interested in betting on this fight, especially on a Corey Mckenna. But for the pick, I'll take Julia Polastri. I just think she's a little more talented. But if you have to have a bet on this fight, I think it's dog or pass.
Yeah,
I hate it though. I hate this fight.
That Mckenna and Elise Reed fight was like unforgivable, man. Like we know Elise Reed has no ground game. And Corey McKenna, her base is the wrestling, get you down to the ground and grind you out. And she got 3 takedowns, but wasn't really urgent to like go for him. And I think she learned from that. She picked up a couple wins, and then last time out is like you're taking the girl down, you're going into the fucking death trap, dude. Like you don't want to be on the ground with Amram. But the thing is, she's 5'3" with a 58-inch reach. She can't really stand and strike with these girls because she's so short and she's got T-Rex arms. So I don't know. I mean, maybe McKenna could wrestle her way to a decision here, but I think Polastri is. I think she's solid. I mean, her most recent loss was to Jazz Davicius before her last one to Knudsen. I think Knudsen's pretty good, and Knudsen's a much better striker than McKenna, and I think her wrestling game is pretty solid as well. And Polastri showed off a little bit of offensive wrestling in that fight too. So I think Polastri is just going to be a lot more aggressive. I like her fight style. She's very, very aggressive. Doesn't really care what's coming at her. She's just going to walk through it. And I think she should have some success in this fight. So I am leaning Polastri. But, you know, if she gets put on her back and she can't get up, then she's screwed. So that just seems like the path to victory for McKenna. I don't know if I can really count on her to do that and do it effectively. So I am leaning with Polastri. She'll be the pick for me.
Yeah, and like with Polastri, the last thing, even though she lost a unanimous decision to Jazz Davicius on the Contender Series, she gave Jasmine all she wanted in that fight. Like as that thing went on, Julia started having success. She was landing some big shots on the feet, and I kind of see that similar thing happening here. Like if Corey gets the wrestling going, she'll have success early. But if Polastri, as the fight goes on, can start to stuff the takedowns, I think she starts picking her apart at range and using those front kicks and everything that she likes to throw, and probably walks away with the win. But man, what a disgusting fight. I hate it.
So gross. A lot of these are. Move on. We got Dan Argueta taking on the debuting Cody Haddon. So we had Cody Haddon on the Contender Series earlier this year. Picked up a win, round 1 sub. Looked great. Now he gets his chance to make his debut against Dan Argueta, who has had some ups and downs in the UFC. I mean, he had probably a career best performance get taken away by the ref with the no contest there to Ronnie Lawrence with the premature stoppage. Looked like he was going to be wrestling Ronnie Lawrence for a long time, and then he had the choke locked in, and then they called it a little bit premature. It's a no contest. Then he loses to Miles Johns. Miles Johns pops. It's another no contest. Then he gets guillotined by Gene Matsumoto, who is a damn good fighter, 14-0. Can't really be down for him on that one because I think Matsumoto is really solid, and I don't think Cody Haddon has the jiu-jitsu that Matsumoto does, but Matsumoto is a good striker, and so is Cody Haddon. I think a lot of those problems could present themselves in this fight as well. Cody Haddon, really solid boxing, solid grappling, younger guy here. He's a favorite though, and you and I really don't like to bet guys making their debut at chalk. But what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think this is from a betting standpoint, this is dog or pass. Like even though Argueta, like you said, he's got ups and he's got downs, and the downs have been unfortunate, you know, with the early tap to Ronnie Lawrence. That's a fight that, you know, Ronnie Lawrence has good wrestling, and a lot of people thought that Ronnie Lawrence was going to be the one having success in that spot, you know, kind of dragging him around the cage. And Argueta was just all over him from the get-go. I think he's going to win that fight regardless. So that's what sucks about it. He was dominating, you know, he was getting close to a finish, and then they thought he got it and call it back or whatever. But, you know, against Matsumoto, for as good as Matsumoto is, Argueta was having a lot of success with the wrestling, and his pace and pressure was very, very good. Just kind of gassed out right there at the very end and got submitted against a guy who's very talented and very dangerous. I know Haddon just got the choke on the Contender Series, and I do actually like that he's turning around so fast, kind of riding that momentum. But I feel like it's going to be a lot harder for him to submit a guy like Dan Argueta than Matsumoto. Matsumoto kind of comes from that background, whereas Haddon has kind of picked up the jiu-jitsu as he's gone. He's got striking in his back pocket too. But I think this is going to look like every Dan Argueta fight. I don't think you're going to see much striking at all. I think he's just going to get in his face, put him against the cage from the very beginning, and hope that he can do it for 15 minutes. And I think he can do it for most of the 15 minutes. It's just, does he not get submitted in the last 5 minutes? Like, it's to be determined, obviously. I don't think Haddon is as dangerous as a guy like Matsumoto, but I do think that Argueta can have success with the wrestling here, which makes it hard not to really take a stab at that plus 150.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking Argueta looks good early, and then I don't know if he slows down or not. I mean, he had 9 takedowns against Matsumoto through 2 rounds before he got subbed with a second left. He's just, once he starts to slow down, there's going to be those opportunities for Haddon to look for a sub. But I think Argueta's probably going to be pushing a pace early. It's just, can he sustain it? And then we also don't know, like, how does Cody Haddon look with a UFC caliber guy taking him down over and over and over again? Does he tire out, type of thing? So it is a very greasy one to me. I think overall, Cody Haddon's probably the better fighter just because he's got better striking. I think his jiu-jitsu is solid. But we haven't really seen him tested at this level. And Dan Argueta is a tough guy to make your debut on because he's going to bring the fight and he's going to try to grind you out. So I don't know. I'm not really too interested in minus 194 on Cody Haddon, to be honest. Probably if I'm going to bet it, maybe be leaning the other way. So for the sake of the show, I guess I'll probably lean with Dan Argueta just at the plus money. But picks don't really mean anything, to be honest. But what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think for so losing to Matsumoto, Matsumoto's undefeated and nothing to really hang your head about because he's very talented. But before that, loses to Miles Johns. Miles Johns is a guy who I think would go out there and beat Cody Haddon. Ronnie Lawrence, good wrestler. Nick Aguirre, he took care of him, unanimous decision, and then he loses to Damon Jackson. Like, Dan Argueta just has experience fighting pretty decent competition. And Haddon making his debut, I hate that. I don't know. I wonder if he flew back to Australia or New Zealand in between the contenders and now. That's a lot of traveling. What's that?
He must have had to because that was 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, it wasn't very long ago. But yeah, I mean, to go out there in your UFC debut and have to fight against a guy that's just going to nonstop put you on the ground, put you on your back, can get frustrating, and you expend a lot of energy. And then you mix that in with all the adrenaline and nerves of your first fight. I just think it's a spot that Dan Argueta could have success. Because if he goes out there and beats Matsumoto in his last fight, like if he doesn't get submitted and, finishes strong with all that control, like there's no way he's plus 150 here against Haddon.
Yeah, I agree. Moving along, we got Jonathan Pearce taking on Pat Sabatini. Grappler versus grappler. Takedown versus jiu-jitsu. Now, Pat Sabatini coming in as the underdog. A little bit tempting, in my opinion. But Jonathan Pearce, we know the deal. I mean, he's going to want to take you down, grind you out. He's got some solid striking. I wouldn't say it's the best, but I think it's probably better than Sabatini's. And Sabatini, there's no doubt this guy does not want to be on the feet. He wants to be on the ground. And maybe if Jonathan Pearce takes him down, maybe he'll be happy about that. Just try to play a jiu-jitsu game and try to work to get on top and do what he does. Very interesting fight for me. What do you got?
Yeah. When I originally looked at this fight, I was like, man, this is Jonathan Pearce all day. He's just going to counter wrestle and stay on the feet and, pick him apart, beat him up. But the more I watch tape, I kind of like Pat Sabatini in this spot because I look at his record and watch his fights. The only real blemish on his record is the Damon Jackson loss where he got flattened out and TKO'd in the first round. I mean, losing to Diego Lopez, look what Diego's doing, man. The dude just beat Brian Ortega on the biggest card of the year to shoot himself up towards a title shot if he gets another win. So that's not a loss to hang your head about. Absolutely dominates Lucas Almeida, just completely puts him on his back. Lucas Almeida worked back to his feet, put him back down, eventually gets the choke. And, he's just doing that to guys. Tucker Lutz, he dominated that entire fight, wouldn't let him breathe. So, I mean, if Jonathan Pearce wants to go out there and offensively wrestle as well, Sabatini is a guy with nasty chokes. Like, this guy is not just a control guy. This guy is wrestling you to get a choke. Like, he's looking for it at all times. He can do it from anywhere. And he does it at a very, very high level. And we've seen Jonathan Pearce get choked out multiple times in the UFC and almost choked out against was it Christian Rodriguez who had him in a really deep choke?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at it right now. So there's 5, 6, 7 submission attempts have been put on Jonathan Pearce. He's only been submitted once.
Subbed once, yeah, by by what's his name, Brito,
yeah,
which was nasty. And, that's the kind of thing. Like, if you're going to go out there and wrestle Pat Sabatini and Brito's finding a choke like that, like a ninja choke, I mean, Pat Sabatini is going to be looking for guillotines, anything like that. So it makes me really nervous about taking Jonathan Pearce at minus 136. And I've kind of flipped to liking Pat Sabatini in this spot. Because a few other things I noticed with Sabatini in some of his fights as well is that his cardio is not that bad. Like, I saw him able to really wrestle and control Tucker Lutz for like a full 15 minutes. He's done that multiple times in his career. And Jonathan Pearce, as fights go on, he starts to get tired. Against Onama, there was a lot of wrestling in that fight, and he kind of started getting pieced up a little bit towards the end. Against Christian Rodriguez, he dominated the fight and then started putting himself in danger towards the end. I just think with the wrestling, there's going to be a lot of moments in this fight where Pat Sabatini is going to be causing or posing a big threat to Pearce with the submission. So, and Pat Sabatini swings for the fences too. So I don't know. It seems like a dog that if you're playing this fight, I think it's dog or pass as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of going back and forth too, because I think Pearce is the better striker. I think he could probably just jab and low kick his way to like a decision, but eventually he's going to have to defend takedowns, and he doesn't really have the best takedown defense. And neither does Pat, because, I mean, they're both wrestlers, and most guys aren't really looking to wrestle them, and if they are, they're kind of getting counter wrestled, and they're okay with it because their ability to find a better position. But I do think Pat can get a takedown here, and once he's on top, I think Pat's better on top with his jiu-jitsu, but Pearce is also very solid on top just with his pressure, and I think he lands a little bit more ground and pound. Pat's more looking for like the submission. Pearce is kind of trying to grind you out, land some ground and pound, land some elbows, and work his way into those later rounds. So I think Pat might be a little bit more dangerous on the ground, just with the fight ending ability. And the fact that we've also seen Pat not have the best chin at times is a little bit alarming. Not that Jonathan Pearce is some crazy dangerous dude on the feet, but the ground and pound, one big elbow could turn Pat with his eyes wide open where he's like, oh shit. So this is a weird one to me. I'd probably chalk it up to the dog price as well. Just because I think Pat, if he gets up on top, he is going to be dangerous. And we've seen Pearce be put in bad spots before. And then it finally got cracked against Brito. And even on the regional scene, he's been submitted a couple times too. So I'll take Pat Sabatini for the pick.
I also think Sabatini has an easier cut to 145 than Pearce.
Yeah.
Pearce looks like he's almost dying in there when he's trying to make weight. I mean, 6 foot at 145, it's going to happen. But yeah, something to think about.
Moving on, we got CJ Vergara taking on Ramazan Temirov, the UFC debuter here at minus 265. So Temirov is an Uzbekistan guy. Very impressive record there, 17-2. His last couple fights have been in Ryzen, which is a respectable promotion. And he got first round knockout in both of them. This dude's got 10 first round knockouts. So we know this guy's dangerous. Flyweight division, you got to be dangerous because there's a lot of volatility with that weight class. CJ Vergara, not exactly the most dangerous guy, but he's got good cardio. He's tough. He's going to fight through a lot of stuff. I think he's only been finished in the UFC once, and that was Tatsuro Taira, who we'll talk about later. So respectable guy in CJ Vergara. I can understand why he's the underdog here, but again, UFC debuter at minus 265. What do you think?
Yeah, I like CJ Vergara more against like wrestlers who are going to get tired because then he gives himself a chance to dog it out. I don't know if he really can hang with Ramazan on the feet here. Ramazan throws heat, man, and he's fast. He's got a lot of knockouts on his record, some in a good promotion, like you said, in Ryzen. And we've seen CJ Vergara finished once, but also, hurt really, really badly in that Daniel Lacerda fight where he basically ran away and did the carousel around the octagon for a minute straight until he could try to recover and was just getting dropped over and over and over again. So yeah, while this thing's on the feet, Vergara is not really scared to stand and trade. And I think it's going to get him in trouble here. Like I said, I do think Ramazan is very talented on the feet, but not only talented and technical, like I said, throws heat, man. You watch some of his highlights, this guy hits like a truck. And I do think he gets the win here. I think he's got a lot of experience. He's got high-level experience. He's 17-2. I think he's ready for the UFC. I don't think this is a guy that comes in here and looks super nervous or has an adrenaline dump and the nerves are too big. I think this guy is a natural born fighter. He's going to be looking to put on a show, get the win. And I think CJ Vergara is solid. I just don't think he's got enough to really go the distance eating shots like this for 15 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to lean with Temirov as well. Not going to take CJ Vergara against an OV. That hasn't really worked out for him. He's just coming off the loss to Almabayev, an EV, but he got wrestled up there. He's a tough guy. He's going to try to take it into deep waters. But I do think he's a little bit outmatched here on the feet. Vergara is not the most dangerous dude. And he's 33. He's getting a little bit older, for a flyweight. That age, once you hit like 32, you get past 32, it's usually downhill from there. And I think Temirov's coming in here looking for a big knockout early. Could find it, but I do think he gets his hand raised here. Give me Temirov. Moving along, we got Clayton Carpenter and Lucas Rocha. More flyweights. I love some flyweights, man. I'm actually a big fan of the flyweight action just because it is usually high pace, a lot of volatility. Anything can happen. Clayton Carpenter, sophomore outing here. Debut was a submission win. Undefeated prospect. I don't know what he's been up to because what was the last time he fought? It was
as February of 2023. So it's been like
20. Yeah. Oh my God. He was actually supposed to fight Steve Ursek in May of 2023.
Damn.
That's crazy.
That's how fast the sport moves.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what he's been up to. Maybe he's been dealing with some injuries, but I would have liked to see him be a little bit more active. I mean, he's 28. I think he's a really solid prospect. Got good wrestling, got good grappling. Stand-up's pretty solid. Taking on a 17-1 Lucas Rocha. Plus money on the debuter here in Rocha. 24. Does that entice you at all on the Rocha side?
A little bit, honestly. Rocha's a guy with a lot of experience at 17-1. He's tough. He's durable. He's got good cardio. The only thing that I hate about him is he's like really small for this division. 5'3". I believe he's fought at like what? Is there organizations he's fought at like 115? I feel like when we broke him down on the Contender Series, I remember reading something like that.
His opponent was.
Oh, okay.
Because he actually missed weight. I actually think you're thinking about a different guy because he missed weight against Bittencourt, and then they rescheduled it the week after at bantamweight.
Okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
When I look at I'm pulling that up. When I look at Clayton Carpenter, like I think he's very skilled. Like you said, he's got good wrestling. His jiu-jitsu is good. On the mat is obviously where he's going to want this fight. But I also watched some of Lucas Rocha's tape, and the guy kind of thrives in chaos. And when he can make it a fast-paced, chaotic first round, and his opponents can't really keep that pace for all 15 minutes, this guy thrives in it, and he's going to take over. He'll rack up some damage. He's not like a fish out of water on the ground by any means. It's not really where he's looking to take the fight. But if he stays on the feet with Clayton Carpenter, I think he's faster for one with the hands. I think he's more willing to kind of get into that brawl and really throw bombs and try to do damage. And I think this is a fight where you see Lucas Rocha coming forward, making it a chaotic first round, and you see Clayton Carpenter trying to get this thing to the ground by all means. Maybe he has success, but if he doesn't, I think this is a fight that Rocha can kind of start to pull ahead on the scorecards. I don't know if he can go out there and finish Clayton Carpenter. He does have 10 knockouts on his record, but if you look at his record, he's fighting some questionable guys, especially early in his career. So yeah, man, this is another fight where I'm not touching a minus 188 sophomore outing in Clayton Carpenter, and you're getting kind of a wild, high-paced guy in Lucas Rocha, who's only lost once in his entire career at plus 150-ish. So yeah, it's interesting to me. For the pick, I do think Clayton Carpenter is going to be bigger and stronger. And I think at least through 2 rounds, he will have success putting him against the cage, dragging him down. Just going to be the question of, can he hold him there? Can he find a submission? And if Rocha keeps getting back up to the feet, is Clayton going to slow down and start getting picked apart a little bit here? But I do like Carpenter's wrestling so far. I'm not really willing to bet him at this price, but I'll take him for the pick.
Yeah, you were right. Rocha fought at strawweight, and then back in 2021 or 2022, doesn't really say, but he moved to flyweight, and then he missed weight at 125 in the Contender Series. So I don't know.
That's so weird that he
getting fat or what. But that Contender Series fight, I mean, he was getting ragdolled in the first, and then he just landed a perfect knee on Bittencourt when he was shooting a takedown. Got the knockout, got the contract. Then he was supposed to fight Jose Johnson. Can you imagine that? If he fought Jose Johnson?
5'3" versus like 6'3"?
6'5", I think he's like 6 foot. Yeah,
Oh,
5'3" versus 6 foot. And he's supposed to fight Josh Van. And geez, I mean,
that would have been high paced.
Yeah, a couple canceled bouts. Not sure what's up there. Could be health issues. Maybe he's having trouble with the weight again. He's getting fat. Who knows? But yeah, you got to respect what Rocha has done. A lot more experience. I think he's a solid striker. I think he's a little bit short and small for the weight. I think Clayton Carpenter can get takedowns on him. We've already seen Rocha have to go through that, and he didn't really pass the test. Can't really land or count on him to land a knee all the time on these guys shooting on him. And I think Carpenter on the feet is good enough to get the job done. So I'm kind of leaning Carpenter here. He had a good Contender Series fight, and then in the UFC, round one sub, Juan Camilo Ronderos. Probably the worst fighter to ever grace the UFC octagon, honestly. Probably not, because we had some really, really stinkers in there. But Ronderos, you can pretty much throw that one out. He was always going to get that sub. I don't know if it comes that easy here against Rocha, but I do think he wins. I'll take Clayton.
He beat Shirez.
Yeah, Edgar Shirez. Yeah, Shirez is a solid fighter, that's for sure. And a big dude. Much smaller guy here in Rocha.
Power, yeah.
All right. Moving on, we got Chidi Nkokuani and Jared Gooden. And Nkokuani, first fight in the UFC at welterweight, his last time out against Rhys McKee. It was a split decision, but was it really? I would probably say no. He looked okay at 170. I know there was some questions about the weight cut. He made the weight. He looked all right. He's the favorite here against Gooden, who was coming off the round 2 sub win over Wellington Turman, which he cashed as an underdog there. Big, or not a big underdog, but another underdog here against Nkokuani. What do you think?
Yeah, this is another one that man, all these fights are like priced right in the same range. That's like that minus 180 is like a death wish for a fighter, I feel like. Or at least this year has been. But I think Chidi's obviously the more talented fighter, the more talented striker. A little bit taller, gonna be rangier, but Jared Gooden is extremely dangerous early in fights. The guy holds a ton of power. We've seen it over and over. And the guy doesn't really have, a crazy amount of quit in him. Like, I mean, we saw him against Carlston Harris. He loses the decision, rocked a few times. But against Wellington Turman, a fight that I thought Turman would just go out there and try to backpack him and just wrestle him the whole time, got rocked by Turman and then turns around and rocks him and then ends up getting the submission himself, which was wild to see Jared Gooden submitting a guy like Wellington Turman. But, I don't think his cardio has ever been that good. As fights go on, he's going to start getting a little wobbly. His legs get shaky. And when he starts taking shots on the chin, he looks like he's going to drop about every time he gets hit. Chidi is a guy also, though, early in fights who has been hurt. I mean, when he fought Mikhail Alhassan, he had Alhassan hurt really, really badly to the body. And then Mikhail was able to go out there and land a big shot himself and hurt Chidi and put him away. Gregory Rodriguez was able to get that second round finish on him. This guy gets hit. He's been finished multiple times at the UFC level. And now he's fighting a guy with a ton of power in Jared Gooden. Like, I don't think minus 180 is where I really want to lay my money in a spot like this, where both guys are dangerous. Both guys can end this thing early. And, if Chidi does, even if he hurts Jared Gooden in here and rushes in, like, he always puts himself at being vulnerable to take a shot back. And I don't think his chin is like necessarily the greatest in the world. We'll see how the cardio holds up for Jared Gooden passed around. I think Chidi with his, with his style and those kicks to the body he digs, I think he can invest in those early if he wants to have success late here, which is, normally we kind of see him do that. Even against Rhys McKee, he was able to land to the body and do really good work in the first couple of rounds. And I have no idea how that was a split decision. I thought Chidi kind of dominated the whole fight. But, yeah, man, for the price, I don't know if I'm going to take a shot on Jared Gooden here, but I think you have to hold a first-round ticket for him. Like, if he wins this fight, I think he's putting Chidi out cold at some point in the first 5 to 7.5 minutes. So, but Chidi, he's the more skilled fighter. I'm going to lean with him for the pick. Betting-wise, I'm not taking him. I think somebody's getting put out in this fight.
I kind of think if Gooden can weather the storm, I think he could maybe take over late. Just
Really?
because the way that Chidi's so sharp in the first round because he's fast, he's long, and his kicks are really fast, and I think he kind of slows down. And Gooden, he's not like a chinny dude. I mean, he's fairly durable. He gets hit a lot, but he's only been knocked out a couple times in his career. And one of them was to Impa in the or not in the UFC, but right after he got cut by the UFC. I don't know. I mean, I kind of think if Gooden can weather it, he can just kind of keep the pressure because we saw Chidi go down to Olashechek in less than 5 minutes just because forward pressure, just eating the shots and keep moving forward. And then we saw Reggie Rodriguez do the same thing, got him out in under 7 minutes just from forward pressure, willingness to come forward. And, fucking Chidi landed that knee that split open Rodriguez, basically had him dead to rights. And then in the second round, just kind of laid down. It was a very weird. I don't know that Chidi has like the most fight in him, to be honest. I think he likes to get that first round knockout. And if he can't get that, I think he kind of panics. So I don't know. I'm kind of leaning the good inside just because I think the forward pressure will be there. I don't think he's the better striker, but I think he's got a little bit more dog in him. And I think if he does crack as well, so maybe he could put him out in the first. Who knows? And I don't know that I like Chidi at 170. I know he made the weight. He's a big dude, but he's older too, 35, and tough weight cuts like that. He's got a lot of fights under his belt. So does Gooden, but Chidi's been around for a while. Kind of leading the good inside. So I'm going to take him for a pick. But this is one that, it really could go either way. Whoever lands first, whoever gets off to a better start, who knows?
Yeah, being 35 years old too for Chidi, like at these weight classes and being in fights where you've taken damage, like against Olashechek and Rodriguez, like at some point he's going to start slowing down a little bit. Maybe the cardio isn't as good as it once was. Yeah, that's interesting as well there. And Gooden, I don't know, something's telling me to take him here. I don't know. We'll see.
I just look at 5 TKO losses for Chidi.
Yeah,
3 submission losses. There's a little bit more finishing upside. I'm in my opinion on Gooden. So,
and he hits a lot hard. Gooden's going to hit a lot harder than a guy like Reese McKee in his last fight. And Gooden, last fight was super exciting in a fight you can kind of grab some momentum off of too.
Yeah, hold on. Let's just think about this. All right, Reese McKee fucking sucks. Okay, let's just call it how it is. He should realistically. He was on a 3-fight losing streak. He beats Reese McKee. Come on, most people beat Reese McKee. So give me Gooden. What is it named? The Night Train or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
the Night Train.
Give me the Night Train, baby. Moving on. We got Themba Gorimbo taking on Niko Price. Very interesting fight here. I don't know how Niko Price is still doing the thing out there, but he is, and he's coming off a win to Alex Morono, who we will talk about later. Probably one of the worst fights I've ever watched. It was disgusting. Both men looked old. Both men looked slow. But at the end of the day, Niko Price got his hand raised, and he got his hand raised as an underdog. Here he is as an underdog again against Themba Gorimbo, who's on a nice little streak. Looks like he's coming into his own ever since he moved over to the U.S. He's getting that good training in. I think his skills have come a long way. He got that athleticism. He's got the frame. Very long, very tall, very strong, very fast, very explosive. Seems like his skills are coming along here. I can see why he's the favorite, but we know Niko Price. Never count that man out. What do you think?
Yeah, I used to never count the man out. I just don't know. Man, I actually picked him to beat Alex Morono because I've never been a big Morono guy. I think Morono's shown signs that he's, not as good as he once was, and he's very hittable and he slows down and guys can take over against him late. That's kind of what Niko did, but man, that fight was like in slow motion. If you watch it, these guys were swinging at each other. And it was maybe the ugliest fight that I've ever watched in my life. It was disgusting. And then, before that, Niko Price goes out there against Robbie Lawler, 40 years old or close to it at least, in his retirement fight. And he's taking these tiny, short uppercuts in the clinch. And he's lights out. Lights out. That's all it took. I don't bet minus 250s or minus 300s. But I've contemplated just laying a 20-unit bomb on Themba here. Because I mean, like, I like Timba, man. I think he's fighting for a lot. I think he's got a lot of motivation. To whereas Nico Price, I think he's showing up for paychecks. You could tell he's just not really been in that good a shape going into fights. Like against Morono, dude, he was huffing and puffing. So is Morono, thankfully, or else Nico is going to get pieced up. But the laboring punches he was throwing, if he goes out there and does that against Timba, Timba's just going to duck under and put him against the cage and take him down and just beat him up a little bit. Like, I don't think Nico has anything in his arsenal that's going to hurt Timba Gorimbo in this spot on the feet. I don't think Nico can go out there and get takedowns himself on Timba. So I just don't really see how Nico wins this fight whatsoever, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, Timba's win streak is not really the most impressive.
No, not at all, but
Sato's cut, Rodriguez is cut. I think Brahma is cut, but I think Timba does win this fight. I think he could probably knock him out too. I mean, Nico's been knocked out like 5 times, and honestly, his best defense is just that he's so fucking slow and like moves so weird. It's like kind of hard to hit him. But I think Timba probably finds a knockout shot here, honestly. I mean, I like the way his skills have come along. And if not, he could take him down, grind him out on top. Timba's showing pretty solid cardio. And I don't really think Nico Price has like KO power at this point. The way he throws punches, I don't even know if he could hurt a fucking newborn baby, to be honest. So, yeah, Timba is the pick for me. I'll take the younger guy too in Timba.
I mean, let's be honest. Like, what happens here if Timba lands the same right hand he landed on Pete Rodriguez?
Oh,
like, Nico might just that just might retire him, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're at the apex, man. Like,
yeah, you're not running anywhere.
Yeah, you're at the apex. You can't really get like pumped up for the fight. Like, who gives a fuck? This is a paycheck for Nico, no doubt. Timba's hungry. Okay, Timba wants the fucking belt. He's going in
unit bomb
for blood. What is it? Is he actually minus 265 right now? I
think he's close to minus 280 now.
Yeah, that'd probably grow. So
I would think. I think he's gonna close minus 350 to minus 400 if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Which scares me, honestly. People are going to this is going to be the parlay. This is going to be number 1 parlay piece of the week, Timba Gorimbo. Yeah. That's what scares me.
Come through for us, Timbo. Let's go. Moving on. We got Daniel Rodriguez and Alex Morono. Another paycheck dude on the card. Alex Morono.
Here he is. God.
For the paycheck. Honestly, Daniel Rodriguez might be showing up for the paycheck too. Just, he got a new contract, I think, after the Gastelum fight because he moved up a weight and kind of just saved the fight happening just by being okay with the weight and everything. So maybe it's just 2 paycheck guys here. And I don't really like either side, to be honest. But Alex Morono, there's no doubt in my mind, this dude's just showing up for paychecks. He fights all the time. He never really looks in shape. He never has looked in shape, for one. Always looks tubby. Never looks like he could actually hurt you with a punch. He's got his own gym. He's coaching all the time. So I can understand why he's an underdog here against Daniel Rodriguez. But at the same time, do I really want to take Daniel Rodriguez at minus 200? Because he looks old. He looks slower. He doesn't look like his punches do anything either. So there's a greasy one here. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely a greasy one. Minus 200 kind of sucks. I was hoping we were going to get closer to, even money because both these guys, especially D-Rod is a little bit older, 37 years old. Alex Morono fights like he's like 38 or 9 right now. Like he just has not looked good. Even his win over Court McGee was a unanimous decision, but I thought for sure that, we were going to see one scorecard with Court's name on it in that spot. Like Court came on strong late. As always, Alex Morono was huffing and puffing. And when Alex Morono gets hit, this guy's head flies back like 3 feet every time he gets touched with anything. He's lucky he's not standing in front of a brick wall, or he would have trauma to the skull, to the back of his skull. Like this guy's head goes flying. He doesn't eat shots that well. He never looks like he's in shape. He doesn't really fight like he's in the best of shape. The one thing I'll give him is like his hands are pretty fast through the first 7.5 minutes of the fight. It's not like he has crazy brutal power or anything, but he is quick. He's got an awkward kind of striking style. And, if this thing goes to the ground for whatever reason, or if D-Rod, slips and Morono gets on top, Morono does have decent jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt. He's pulled off submissions in the UFC before. That could be a path to victory for him. But, the more he tries to get fights to the ground, the more he's going to get tired. I think D-Rod has a good body kick on him. He's got a good jab. He's going to be slightly taller. He'll have a couple inches of reach here. If this thing stays out on the feet and D-Rod doesn't just completely gas the same way Morono's probably going to, I think he should win some kind of decision here. I just think his striking's a little bit sharper. It's going to look better to the judges. Morono, like I said, every time he gets hit, it does not look good to the judges because this dude just flailing around. Give me D-Rod for the pick. Not a big Morono guy whatsoever, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick D-Rod as well. At least he's got the ability to throw out 100 or land 127 significant strikes, and he's always had great volume. I think his boxing is pretty sharp. I don't know that he really hits the hardest nowadays. Takedown defense isn't the best, but like you said, Morono's not really a guy that lands a lot of takedowns, and he'd probably start to gas out if he tries. But if it does hit the ground, Morono is pretty solid there. If Daniel Rodriguez shoots a sloppy takedown, he's probably going to get guillotined. So this is just disgusting to me, but I think D-Rod is probably the rightful favorite, and I will take him for a pick.
Watch, this is last thing I'll say, it doesn't really pertain to the breakdown, but this is a fight that's going to be priced at like minus 250 to go the distance, and something stupid's going to happen, and D-Rod is going to get subbed, or he's going to knock out Morono in this fight. So it's going to be funny.
Disgusting. All right, now we got Abdul Razak Alhassan coming in as the favorite against Josh Fremd at plus 122. Josh Fremd coming in here after the loss to Andre Petroski, where he could not get off his back. 2-fight losing streak. His wins in the UFC are Jamie Pickett and Cedriques Dumas. Alhassan coming off the no contest to Cody Brundage, where he almost got Cody Brundaged with the shots to the back of the head. They called it a no contest, so it's not a loss on his record. Before that, he got subbed by Joe Pyfer. Chalk on Alhassan is never really my favorite thing to do, but to be honest, I think he knocks Josh Fremd's head off. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he should, at least. The one thing that Josh Fremd really has going for him is that he is game to fight. Like, he'll stand in there and trade with guys, and if you can't knock him out, he's shown that he has good cardio. He trains at elevation. It's kind of his key in his back pocket is the cardio. But he's just not like super good anywhere. I feel like I read somewhere he's a guy who started training mixed martial arts later in life. He didn't grow up, with wrestling or anything. His striking, it's not really the best. It's not really the most powerful. And he beat Cedriques Dumas. Dumas was kind of a can at that point, and a guy that people had hype because he came in on the Contender Series, and before that was knocking out guys in street fights, yada yada. But Fremd was able to just kind of expose him for what he is in that spot. Alhassan is a judo guy originally, very strong. He can get takedowns, trips, hip tosses, all that fun stuff. He just kind of discovered he's got power in his hands and just went away from it. The guy has it in his back pocket. You never really see him use it. He likes these firefights. I think he's felt the little adrenaline jolts he gets from just putting dudes unconscious, and that's kind of his style, and that's his game plan now. I do think he's going to be a lot faster than Josh Fremd, and I do think, like you said, I think he can knock the head off of Josh Fremd here. Fremd, he's got the liver kick knockout or TKO loss to Roman Kopylov. Got submitted by Trayshawn Gore, where his head nearly popped off. And then Gregory Rodriguez knocked him out in the first round. But other than that, he's not really getting finished in his losses. I guess those are some of his only losses, but he's not really getting finished a ton against grapplers going to the ground. I think that's kind of his strong suit. And if he can somehow get on top of Alhassan, I think that's where his bread and butter is going to be in this spot. Because while it's on the feet, I think he's going to be in great danger all 15 minutes of eating a big shot here. So, yeah, I think Alhassan wins the fight. Minus 155. I feel like this is going to grow closer to minus 200, especially after Josh Fremd's last 2 fights, both losses. So, yeah, I'm going to take Alhassan for the pick.
Yeah, if you're going to take Alhassan, it's KO1 or KO2, because that's literally only his wins. Yeah. 11 first-round knockouts and 1 second-round knockout. So, and I think he probably does find the chin on Josh Fremd. I just don't really think Josh Fremd's striking is all that great. Like, he's a tall dude, but he doesn't really move that well. It doesn't really use his length that well. His wrestling isn't really that good. And if you look at Alhassan when he's losing, he's getting taken down. He got taken out 3 times by Pyfer, 5 times by Buckley, 8 times by Malkoon. So maybe there's a path for Josh Fremd there to get takedowns. I haven't really seen like the best wrestling game from Josh
Yeah.
Fremd. Like can't really fall back on that. He just got out wrestled by Petrosky for 3 rounds. Never looked good at all in that fight. So it is very tough. I don't want to be all on board on Abdul Razak because he is kind of KO 1 or 2 bust. And considering Petrosky's coming off a bad, or Fremd's coming off a bad performance, I don't want to get too down on him. But I do think Alhassan wins this fight, so I'm going to take him for a pick.
Alhassan is almost 40 years old too.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Is he really?
Yeah, I don't know.
He's probably got good genes, man. Probably got some good genes.
Yeah. No, I think Fremd, like if he wants to win the fight, I think he does have to find offensive takedowns. And I just think Alhassan with the judo background, strong hips, he's going to know how to keep himself upright and get off the cage if he has to. And that space, should just beat his ass. Let's be honest.
All right. So now we got Grant Dawson coming in here as the favorite, minus 390 to Rafa Garcia, sitting at plus 280. Both guys I've bet on in the past. And I have been pretty satisfied with those bets outside of the Bobby Green knockout on Grant Dawson. But this is a matchup where I think Grant Dawson is the rightful favorite. But Rafa Garcia, he's a tough dude. I mean, he's tough to get out of there. And he's going to bring good cardio. He's going to bring good stand-up. And his wrestling is pretty solid. But overall, I just think Grant Dawson's wrestling is going to be too good. And once he gets you down on the ground, he is a finisher, man. Like, don't get the last fight. Don't get fooled by the last fight. Like, you look at his wins in the UFC, they're pretty much all finishes outside of a decision to Joe Solecki out his last time out. So I think Grant Dawson's probably got more finishing upside in this one. And I think he can get takedowns. I think he probably wins. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the one thing I think, though, you never want to see the minus 390, minus 400 tag on Grant Dawson after getting finished in 30 seconds as one against Bobby Green. But the only difference there is Bobby's got a little snap on his shots. And I think Garcia is a decent enough striker who fights behind his jab, but he's not like a power striker whatsoever. The guy gets a lot of decision wins, and it's when he can just kind of keep fights upright and box with guys. Nothing crazy, nothing real slick, just technical and smooth. And I think against Grant Dawson, you got to have a little bit more than that, because if you're kind of stationary and you're wanting to just get in the traditional boxing stance and style, Dawson's just going to grab you, drag you down to the ground. And, if he does get Rafa Garcia down early in rounds, I don't really see Garcia working back up to his feet at all. There's not many guys that have been able to do that against Grant Dawson. I don't know why Garcia would be the first one to. So, this one's pretty simple for me. I think if Grant Dawson just doesn't eat some weird shot from Garcia, and, honestly, Garcia, here's the crazy thing, why it shouldn't happen and why Grant Dawson shouldn't get knocked out and should just cruise to a victory in this one. Garcia has 19 professional fights, 16 wins, 1 knockout.
Yeah.
1 knockout. So unless Grant Dawson proves to just have the worst chin in mixed martial arts history, I don't think he's getting knocked out here. And I think he just kind of does what he wants with Hoffa on the ground.
Yeah. I mean, Garcia has used a lot of takedowns to win his fights, but I just don't think he's going to be the better wrestler than Grant. I mean, Grant probably does find his back at some point, threaten with a rear naked, maybe get him down to the ground, belly down and land some shots, maybe gets him out of there. But if not, I think he's got very solid cardio. I think it probably wins the decision here. Honestly, I think Rafa's probably tough enough to ride it out. He just can't make any mistakes, and Grant gets it done. Moving along, co-main event, Brad Tavares, Jung Young Park. Little rebooking here. We had this fight scheduled back in July. Jung Young Park weighs in, and then they had to pull him out for health issues, I believe. It's a decent matchup. I can understand why they rebooked it, and I think it's perfectly fitting for a co-main event at the Apex. Jung Young Park runs the Apex nowadays, except when he fights Andre Muniz. The fight where that he's coming off of, a loss to Andre Muniz, snaps the win streak for him. It was a split decision. Muniz was just ragdolling him. I don't know that Brad Tavares is going to be coming in here looking to ragdoll, but Jung Young Park surely probably going to be looking to try to implement some type of grappling Park comes in at -174. Tavares +136. Park is the younger fighter. What do you think?
It's interesting. Originally, I was on Brad Tavares, and I don't know if anything's really changed to make me change my pick. And the big reason being is that Tavares historically in the UFC has had some of the better takedown defense of all time, considering how many fights he's got. Takedown defense stands at 81%. Jung Young Park's not a bad striker by any means, but compared to Brad Tavares, who's very technical, who will kick your leg off and will dig to the body over and over, and he can fight 15 minutes, and he's been in there with world champions. I just don't really think that Park's gonna overwhelm him on the feet by any means. I don't think he's gonna land some big knockout shot by any means. I think Park has to get the takedowns to win this fight. Now, if he does get Brad Tavares down, I think the control time is going to be there. The threat of submission could be there as well. But, if he slows down kind of like he did against Andre Muniz and Brad Tavares, and you're caught standing with him, I feel like Brad could have a lot of success. It's not like Brad has a ton of knockouts lately in the UFC, but he is such a good striker, and he's very methodical with it. And yeah, I like the leg kicks to get going in this spot. I like the body kicks. Something's telling me that if it stays on the feet, +136 is going to look more like a -250 for him. I don't think Park has a lot to offer against a high-level kickboxer like Tavares on the feet.
Yeah, I was on Tavares as well. I don't know if I bet on it, but I was kind of leaning that way when this fight was originally booked. And I'm kind of going back and forth now. I'm probably think Brad Tavares is good enough to win a round, so I might be looking at like a +3.5 on Tavares. I'm not sure what the line's going to be on that, but I do think Park's volume on the feet is pretty solid, and I think Tavares, just considering the age and how many fights he's been in, how many wars he's been in, I don't really like that for him. But I think Park on the feet's not much of a KO threat. Once he gets people on the ground, he's getting finishes, but it's fucking Albert Duraev, Dennis Tululin, and Joseph Holmes. I think Brad Tavares is better than them. I don't think he's going to get subbed by Park on the ground. But Park does push a pace. And if he can throw a bunch of volume on the feet, not get hit with anything big, mix in some takedowns, or even just some cage control, like the judges just seem to love cage control in some fights. Who knows? But I am kind of just leaning Park just as a straight pick, just because he's younger. And he's coming off a loss against a wrestler that a grappler that I think is pretty good, and he never stops fighting. That's kind of what I like about Park. He never really stops fighting, and once he does get you on the ground, he does look to land some ground and pound. So I am going to take Park for the pick, but I don't know that I would touch him at -174. I don't really think there's a lot of value on that. To the main event, we got Brandon Royval taking on Tatsuro Taira. Taira, 24 years of age, 8 years younger, coming in at -230 off the TKO win to Alex Perez, where he blew his knee out in that main event. Royval coming off the win against Brandon Moreno, looking to defend his spot at +176. Moreno's been around the game for a while, fought for the title, got ragdolled by Pantoja, had his moments. That's for sure. Outlanded Pantoja, I think, straight up. He's can throw a lot of volume. He does have some very herky-jerky striking, which can kind of throw off his opponents, and he can land some shots that put people out. But you have to look at his most recent knockouts, Nicolau and Matt Schnell. Those chins there are not the best. So I don't know that he's like big knockout power, to be honest. But he is scrambly, tough to hold down just because he never stops working. And Taira, it's definitely his hardest fight to date. I don't know if I can say the same for Royval, considering he's fought Pantoja a couple times. And he just beat Brandon Moreno. So you're getting plus money on the more experienced guy here, the guy that's more tested at the top of the division. Do you think there's any value on it?
I think there might be just a little bit, just because Royval is a guy who's just fought nothing but killers, on his way up. He's had a ton of experience against high-level guys, fought Pantoja, outlanded him, like you said, on the feet against Taira. Like, I see the same thing happening. I think he throws more volume. Maybe Taira, showed in his last fight he's dangerous. In his fight before that, when he fought Carlos Hernandez with that big right hand. Maybe Taira has more power on the feet, just more raw power. But Royval definitely going to be more technical, definitely going to be, throwing a lot more volume out there. He's been around the block with good strikers in the octagon. Brandon Moreno, that last fight, I know Moreno is a little bit older now. He's had a lot of wars, but he outlanded him 145 to 112. That's pretty impressive to do to a guy in Moreno who's very, very slick with the boxing and is able to go out there and box up guys like Divas and Figueiredo and some other high-level opponents. Now, the thing that concerns me in the spot for Royval is he went out there and got taken down 3 times by Brandon Moreno, got taken down 8 times by Pantoja, 8 times by Rogerio Bontorin, 3 times in the fight where he lost by submission to Pantoja in the second round. So this guy's very, very susceptible to the wrestling and to the takedowns. And if I'm Taira, I'm not even messing with the striking in this one. I'm going to go to him. I'm going to get the takedowns right away. But it's kind of a double-edged sword for him too, because this is a 5-round fight for Tatsuro Taira. Yeah, the wrestling could work, especially early in the fight. But Royval is a guy who has consistently shown us that he can fight hard for all 15 minutes. It's kind of to be determined to see what happens to Taira after that 3rd round, especially against a guy like Royval, who's going to be landing a ton of volume. He works all levels with the striking. That's kind of my concern for Taira here. Like, I don't think it's too much too soon for him. I just think he's matched up against a guy who kind of offsets some of his skill sets with the volume, with the pace, and definitely the experience. So, yeah, if Taira gets past Royval here, and if he does it in spectacular fashion, this is straight to the top for Tatsuro Taira. But I think it is going to be a tough, hard-fought type of fight. It's not like Royval's out there getting knocked out a ton. I know Brandon Moreno finished him once in the UFC, and that's the only time he's been finished by strikes or TKO or anything like that. I think it's really the sub that Royval's got to worry about here. But easier said than done for Tatsuro Taira. I mean, Royval, like I said, he got subbed by Pantoja, but that was a couple of years ago. I think Royval is a guy who's dedicated and loves fighting. I think he's going to be getting better in that department. Just depends if he can stay off his back or not.
Yeah, one thing to note, Factory X Muay Thai, I guess, has had some falling out. So that's something that Royval has had to deal with, just dealing out with, like, what's his training camp going to be like. So not something you like for the Royval side. The Moreno fight, to me, I honestly thought, like, Moreno just let that one get away. Like,
He stopped throwing.
he was so low volume. I mean, Royval threw 510 significant strikes out there, and Moreno only threw 211. So Royval threw twice the amount of volume, over twice the amount of volume. And I just don't really see Taira doing that. And I also just think the grappling edge for Taira is pretty wide here, honestly, just because the takedown defense from Royval is terrible. Like, he's 40% in his career. And the one thing I knew going into the fight with Taira and Perez is that Perez has really solid takedown defense, like very, very solid. I mean, Makayev only got him down 3 times, and he stuffed like 3 out of 20 takedowns from Makayev. And I think Makayev's a better wrestler than Taira. Taira still got him down twice, and ultimately he didn't even really need to take him down. He just took his back from the standing position. I think Taira's ground game is just going to be too much here for Royval. I think he can get takedowns, and once he's on top, I think he's nasty with his jiu-jitsu. Just kind of lulls you to sleep. I mean, he'll keep position. He's going to be a position over submission kind of guy, but once the submission presents itself, he's going to go for it, and he's a finisher on the ground. So I think Taira does get this one done. Minus 230 is a little bit uncomfortable in my opinion, just because Royval is pretty tested at that high level. And, if Pantoja couldn't sub him, then, that's always going to be the argument. If Pantoja couldn't sub him, then is Tatsuro Taira going to sub him? I don't know. But I do think he can get takedowns, and I think his control is really solid. And I think his stand-up is solid too. He's a younger guy, still undefeated. I think I got to go with Taira here. So we'll see. I mean, 24, moving up the ranks real quick. Tatsuro Taira is what Makayev wanted to be, for real. He wanted to be that, but he just wasn't. Maybe he just had to be maybe he just shouldn't be able to speak English, because Taira can't speak a lick of English. And it's in the Apex too. Kind of like that for a young guy. Not have to deal with the big moment, smaller cage. We'll see. but Taira is the pick. And that'll do it for the card. Appreciate y'all for watching. Please like and subscribe for us. Leave a comment down below what your picks are. Stay up to date with everything at Home of Picks on IG. Once again, if you want our bets, jump in the Home of Fight Picks premium membership. There's a link down in the description to do so. We'll have some bets for the Contender Series tonight. Once this gets posted, got bets for UFC this Saturday. Anything else for the viewers before we hop out of here?
No, you and I have crushed contenders all year. Coming off of a bad week, I think we're profitable in 6 of 8 cards.
Yeah,
and a couple of those cards up massive. I was up 10 units one card, 4 units 2 weeks ago. We got to end strong. Two more cards of it.
Let's do it. Nothing else for me. Appreciate y'all for watching. Till next time, the Double Leg signing out.